and welcome to Billing Insights, your favorite podcast for medical billing. My name is Taylor,
And I'm Anita.
and today we are going to tell you how to sign your notes like a goat if you are a physician, provider, etc. And you need to sign your medical documentation. We are going to teach you how to do that with a few simple, easy steps. So, Anita, take it away.
So, everybody knows you're seeing a patient, or if you're the medical biller for a physician, you know that they go in, they start the MA or the nurse, whoever brings the patient into the room, takes the vital signs, then the physician comes in and he starts seeing the patient. Now, a lot of times, at least in these days, with electronic health records, the physician starts typing his note while he's in the room with the patient. There are still quite a few physicians, though, that document on paper. And whenever they leave the room, they may not have even begun doing the actual documentation for that patient. So the question is, when you are seeing the patient and you do the prescription and everything like that, what happens after the physician leaves the room, and when and how is he supposed to sign his note?
Do you sign it today, tomorrow, next week, next year? You'll find it all out here in a short few moments. So, first thing we have to let you know is to always sign your note. You cannot be submitting claims to insurance without your documentation being signed.
Correct. Super important. And here at Gateway Medical Solutions, we do not submit claims without the note being completely filled out and a signature at the bottom. I will tell you that we, on quite a few instances, have actually sent charges back to the physician and asked them to complete and sign their note. Or if there's missing documentation, such as a DME for like a back brace or something like that, and there's a form. Maybe the documentation is filled out, but the form, the proof of delivery, is not filled out. So those we send a query back to the physician and ask them to complete their note. If there's no signature, we send it back to the physician and ask them to sign it.
Medicare has a few accepted versions of the signature. The first one would be legal hand or legible handwritten. I don't know how legal came out, but legible handwritten signatures or initials.
So they need to be able to read your name if you're signing it on paper.
It can't just look like this, although we know that they teach that at school.
We swear they do.
The next one would be an electronic signature. Electronic signatures should contain the date and the timestamps and include printed statements. Electronically signed by would be a printed statement or verified slash reviewed by. But it just needs to kind of say that.
Right.
This is kind of just my own little interjection here. Does an attestation count as the signature or is that a completely
Yes,
separate?
because it would still be an electronic signature,
Mm.
but an attestation is a little bit different. It's a statement by the physician saying that there was a nurse practitioner or another mid-level or something in the room who also saw the patient. And for a significant portion of the time, and I think Medicare has now made it as of January of this coming year, that at least 50% of the time spent with the patient has to be done by the physician. Otherwise, if 50% or more of the time was spent by the nurse practitioner, then it would get billed under the nurse practitioner.
Now that makes sense.
One thing I did want to throw in there, Medicare has said that stamped signatures. So if you had a stamp that sometimes front offices have to stamp and say, I don't know, this paperwork was done by the physician or something like that. Stamps are not allowed as signatures and proof of who did the documentation.
And now that gets a little bit tricky as we get into the third accepted form of signature, which is the digitized signature. And that's just an electronic image of the individual's handwritten signature reproduced in its identical form using a pen tablet. This is an actual real-time signature, and it's done electronically, like the man, I just lost my spot. Like the digital sign out with a credit card transaction.
Right.
So There are some issues that may arise. I know everybody has very busy schedules, so you may not lock your notes the second you see
Immediately.
the patient or that night. But if you are trying to get claims paid in a timely fashion,
Mhm.
you don't want to be holding your claims for a long amount of time. And again, any good billing company should be holding your claims if you don't have all of the proper documentation. So think about it this way. If you are waiting until the last day of timely filing, you're holding all your charges for 364 days.
For Medicare.
For Medicare, whose timely filing is 1 year. That wouldn't work for a timely filing of 90 days or something,
Right.
but stay
Well,
with me. um, so if you're holding it for 364 days, on the 365th day at 4 p.m., you're messaging your biller and saying this notice locked, get it sent out before the end of the day. We're still within timely. First thing I need to point out is that a lot of insurances have a cutoff time of when they're accepting charges throughout the day. Some insurances may cut off at 3 p.m. You messaged your biller at 4 p.m. Now that
you missed the
insurance
time.
is actually not going to receive it until the 366th day, even though you submitted it on the 365th day. I could ramble on about all of these different things, but I want to let you get a word in.
So we have a problem too because even though CMS says that it's you need to sign as during or as soon as is practicable after the visit. It's so vague that it's really kind of leaving it open-ended. But Medicare JMACs have come back and said that they would prefer that the notes are signed and locked within 24 to 48 hours. So that does kind of give a time frame. I know that hospitals are really strict and they have people going around double checking to make sure that all of their documentation is signed in a timely fashion. So there are people that do check that, and really, as a provider, you should be getting it done while it's fresh in your mind because 3 weeks later, are you going to really remember what was 100% said during that visit?
So, late signatures are discouraged significantly after the service. If it is not complete, that is what they're saying. Significantly, it's very vague, but I would take that to mean, once you're already at a month, that's pretty
Mhm.
significantly after, because how are you supposed to remember how many sutures you took out or something like that? Was the patient's pain in the right eye or the left eye? And then there are things you can fall back on, like unspecified diagnosis codes, but those cause denials.
Yes,
So
they
you
do.
want to do it while the visit is still fresh in your mind. You can remember everything, and you want to do it as soon as possible so you do not delay payment. So a couple of examples. We're back to the 365th day. Let's say you do it before 3 p.m. You're like, okay, I watched Billing Insights. I
I know that
remember.
I have to do it before timely filing.
I know that it can't be after 3 p.m. because some insurance somewhere closes off at 3. Let me do it at 8 a.m. Your biller was sick that day. Now what? They were on vacation. Now what?
Right.
Um, the EHR didn't work that day. The practice management didn't work
Mhm.
that day. Your
There was
internet was out
a
that
storm,
day.
and right, I was about to say it caused the internet to go down, or the phone system was down, or numerous things can
A
happen.
type of storm where you have to evacuate and
Mhm.
not be at the office. Um, Now, I will say for a lot of natural disasters, timely filing may get extended,
And that has been known to happen.
but it's hard to make that argument saying that the natural disaster is the reason why when it happened on the 365th day and you had
And
364 days before that to get it submitted.
exactly. Now, we had an instance, and I'm sure you may have heard about it. If you're new to medical billing, you may not have heard about the clearinghouse being hacked in February of this year. But
February 21st, I
mhm,
believe.
it caused huge delays in getting claims submitted and getting payments. And they did extend timely filing for quite some time after that. But that's not something that's typical that, CMS or Medicare will actually often do.
Yeah, you don't want to rely on a special circumstance, a special allowance. You
Mhm.
want to get paid. You need
You need
money.
cash flow to be
Why are
happening
you
all the
providing
time.
services without getting paid? It doesn't make sense.
Mhm.
Do you have any other tips or tricks on how to sign your note like a goat? So
Uh,
far, we've kind of just said
talked
these
about
are
why
the
it's
acceptable
important.
forms. Don't forget to have the date in your signature.
Excuse me. So if you have an EHR that does a digital signature for you, that is great. Make sure that you sign off. And when we say we lock and sign, most EHRs have a lock symbol inside the EHR that tells you, hey, my note is locked. If you get into an audit and the insurance is asking for notes and you realize, oh, I didn't have my note signed from 2 years ago, there's still a way to be able to keep yourself from getting into trouble with the audit. And the way that we tell our providers is to fill out an attestation statement. And with that attestation, we can go ahead and give them an example. So we'll go ahead and we'll show you a sample of this. But what it says is that I, Dr. Smith, hereby attest that the medical record entry for date of service, January 15th, 2024, accurately reflects my signature that I made in my capacity as a physician when I treated the above listed Medicare beneficiary. I do hereby attest that this information is true, accurate, and complete to the best of my knowledge, and I understand that any falsification, omission, or concealment of material fact may subject me to administrative, civil, or criminal liability. And then it has the physician's signature, their typed and printed name, and then today's date. So what you're saying basically is, yes, I saw the patient on that day, and all of the paperwork that I forgot to fill out and sign is true. So you need to make sure that what you're signing is true and don't make up anything. The problem is, of course, if it's 2 years ago, do you remember everything that was true at that time? And hopefully that you do.
Fraud is bad, okay?
We will be covering fraud and abuse in a different podcast.
Fraud versus abuse. It
Mhm.
is, it's a doozy.
Yes, it is. So back to signatures. They are very important. They should be signed and locked for every note, and do it as soon as possible to the actual date that you saw the patient. Make sure that you, as the provider, are the one who signs it and that it's not your office manager. We've run across that in one instance where the office manager was signing and locking notes. That is not acceptable.
You have to be the one to sign, you have to be the one to lock.
Yes. Um, Otherwise, I think that's pretty much it for signing your notes.
Yes, and your scribe cannot sign it for you either. They can
No,
type everything else. You still have to be the one to,
actually review that note to make sure that it's correct, and then you are the one who signs.
right. So that brings us to the end of how to sign your note like a goat. Bah. So thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate having you here. And we really appreciate your support. Uh, Remember to please like, comment, subscribe, and punch that
Mhm.
notification bell so you can be notified every time we post a new video, as this is an ever changing industry and you need to stay up to date on everything that comes out. So without further ado, thank you so much. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next video.
Bye.
Bye.